Hey everyone. You've all probably been glued to the news, right? About the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's been hard to look away.
It's been hard to look away. But today on this deep dive, we're going to look at one specific thing.
Oh, yeah.
One specific development that has military analysts buzzing, which is that Russia has finally put their Su-57 Felon fighter jet into play, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I think people have been waiting to see this thing in action for a long time.
I think so too, and it's been shrouded in so much mystery over the years.
Definitely. Lots of hype.
Lots of hype. Yeah, exactly. So we're going straight to the source for this deep dive, a recent article from 1945.
Okay.
And by the end, you'll not only know what's happening, but you'll understand why it matters, what the potential impact could be on the conflict, and what questions this raises about the future of air warfare.
When you and I were talking about this earlier, it really does feel like a turning point.
Yes.
In the conflict.
Yeah, a potential turning point. Okay, so let's start with the Su-57 itself.
Okay.
It was touted as this super advanced stealth fighter designed to really dominate the skies. So did it live up to the hype?
Well, the Su-57 does have design features that are aimed at reducing its radar signature, like the angular shape.
Oh, interesting.
And radar absorbent materials. But there are limitations. Like, for example, its stealth capabilities, they might be better suited to avoiding detection on approach rather than, sustained operations over enemy airspace.
So not quite the invisible wraith some people were imagining.
Yeah, precisely. Stealth is a spectrum, not an on-off switch.
Makes sense.
And there are always trade-offs.
Right.
When you focus on stealth, it can sometimes impact other features of the aircraft, like maneuverability or how much weaponry a plane can carry.
Interesting.
In the case of the Su-57, we've seen more emphasis on launching missiles from a distance rather than, engaging in intense aerial combat over enemy territory.
That makes sense because it seems incredibly risky to send such a valuable asset, deep into enemy territory where it could be shot down.
Oh, absolutely.
So with all that in mind, why would Russia choose this moment to ramp up the Su-57 deployment?
Right.
What's changed?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
There are a few possibilities. So there have been reports of production issues over the years, so perhaps they finally ironed those out.
Okay.
Or maybe they wanted to keep their tech under wraps for as long as possible.
Makes sense.
It's also possible, and this is something that I find particularly intriguing, that they've learned from observing how other nations have employed their stealth fighters.
Oh, like the U.S.
Like the U.S.
Interesting.
The conflict in Ukraine has become a testing ground.
Yeah.
A way to see how these advanced systems perform in a real-world scenario.
It's like a real-time experiment,
It is.
With incredibly high stakes.
Yeah, very high stakes.
All right, so speaking of real-world scenarios, the 1945 article highlights this event from December 31st.
Okay.
A strike on Kyiv and the Vasilkiv Air Base.
Right.
And they say that Su-57s were involved launching Kh-69 and Kinzhal missiles from within Russian airspace.
Oh, wow.
Targeting Ukrainian air defenses.
Interesting.
So, what's the significance of this event?
Well, I think it's a classic example of how the Su-57 strengths can be exploited. Because launching from within Russia, they can use those stealth capabilities to get close enough to launch those long-range missiles and then slip back before, Ukrainian defenses can react.
Oh, so this whole standoff approach really plays to the Su-57's strength.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah? Plus, targeting air defenses first is a crucial strategy for any kind of air campaign.
Right.
They're essentially paving the way for other Russian aircraft like the MiG-31s and the Tu-95 MS bombers
the bomber
that operate more freely.
I see. So they're using the Su-57 as like a high-tech shield, kind of, for their older bombers?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Wow.
And remember, Russia has struggled to establish true air superiority in this conflict. This could be their attempt to kind of turn the tide.
This reminds me of that old saying, the best defense is a good offense.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
By taking out, or at least disrupting, those Ukrainian air defenses.
Right.
Russia can gain a significant tactical advantage.
Yeah.
But it's not just about brute force, There's also an element of psychological warfare at play here.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. Knowing that Su-57 can strike from within Russia's borders without even crossing into Ukraine, it creates this constant sense of vulnerability
for the
Ukrainians.
Yeah.
It's a way to demoralize and disrupt.
So they're hitting the physical targets, but also trying to undermine morale.
Yeah.
Clever, but kind of chilling, right?
Absolutely. And this is what makes modern warfare so complex. It's no longer just about tanks and troops.
Right. Yeah.
It's about information, perception, and the constant race to outmaneuver your opponent, both on the battlefield and in the minds of the people.
So the Su-57 is a physical weapon, but also a symbol.
Yes.
A tool of psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
Man, that's a lot to unpack. And we haven't even touched on those missiles they're packing yet.
Right. We haven't gotten into the specifics yet.
Yeah, the KH-69, the Kinzhal, even the Iskander-M. We'll get into the specifics of those right after this.
It's striking, isn't it, how Russia's using the Su-57?
Yeah.
Not the bold, in-your-face attack some might have expected.
Yeah, like a sneak attack almost.
Yeah. Yeah, they're playing it smart. Utilizing those standoff capabilities.
It seems very deliberate, like they're really choosing their targets carefully.
Right.
Minimizing the risk to their own pilots. And I mean, those jets are not cheap.
Oh, yeah. Very expensive assets.
So
they're leveraging that stealth to get in close, launch those long-range missiles, and then get out before Ukrainian defenses can,
Right. Lock on.
Lock on, yeah.
So they get in, do damage.
Right.
Get up.
That's right. Hit hard, hit fast. Stay out of reach,
But wouldn't it be more, like, make more of a statement to fly right into contested airspace, like a show of force?
Maybe, but that's a high-risk strategy.
Oh, how so?
I mean, remember, these aircraft are packed with cutting-edge sensors, the works, So losing one of those, not just to enemy fire, but potentially having one captured intact.
Oh, yeah.
Huge setback for Russia, both technologically and, for propaganda purposes.
I know, for sure.
So, strategic advantage over bravado.
Right.
It's a more subtle approach.
Yeah.
But in some ways, even more unsettling for Ukraine, I think.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
It creates that constant sense of uncertainty.
Right. You never know when or where the next attack is coming from.
Exactly, yeah.
Keeps them on edge constantly.
That's right.
And it allows Russia to keep hitting those key infrastructure targets, right? Like the ones they've been focusing on for months now.
Exactly.
Crippling Ukraine's ability to defend.
Right.
And I mean, wearing down civilian morale too, right?
Absolutely.
It's a grim reality, but this is kind of the evolution of modern warfare, isn't it?
I think so.
This, precision strikes, minimizing collateral damage. At least that's the theory.
That's the theory.
Well, maximizing disruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the electronic warfare element, too.
Oh, right.
The Su-57 isn't just a platform for missiles. It's also like a flying hub.
Oh, wow.
For electronic warfare systems.
So jamming radars?
Yeah, jamming radars.
Disrupting communications.
Disrupting communication.
Just like sowing chaos on the battlefield.
Yeah, sowing chaos.
So it's stealthy. It can launch these devastating attacks from afar.
Yeah.
And it can mess with enemy electronics.
That's right.
That's quite the package.
It is. And, it adds another layer of complexity for Ukraine. It's not just incoming missiles. It's an invisible electronic battle.
Right.
Trying to maintain their own communications and awareness.
Wow.
While under constant electronic bombardment.
This is starting to feel like something out of a sci-fi movie. Like,
I know, right?
One side has this super advanced weapon.
Right.
That just seems impossible to counter.
It's a challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
But Ukraine has surprised many with its resilience and adaptability.
Yeah, they have.
Throughout this whole conflict.
They have. And the article does mention they're requesting those TAD systems from the U.S., right?
Yeah, they are.
Those advanced missile defense systems.
Right.
Designed to intercept just these kinds of threats.
Exactly. And this brings up another critical aspect.
Oh, okay.
The role of international support. Ukraine is heavily reliant on military aid from the West.
Right.
Not just for defensive systems like TAD, but also for intelligence.
Right.
Training, offensive weaponry.
Yeah.
All that stuff they need to counter Russia's evolving tactics.
It feels like this conflict is escalating on multiple fronts.
Yes.
Not just on the ground, but in this technological arms race.
You're absolutely right. And that raises the stakes, not just for Ukraine and Russia,
right,
but for global security as a whole.
Right. It's a global issue now.
It is, if Russia's new approach with the Su-57 proves successful.
Right.
It could embolden other nations with advanced capabilities to adopt similar tactics,
right,
leading to a more unstable world.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll explore more in the final part of our deep dive.
So we've spent this deep dive focused on Russia's Su-57.
Yeah.
And, its impact on the conflict in Ukraine.
Right.
I think it's easy to get caught up in the stealth fighter label, but I think we've seen it's a lot more than that.
It really is, yeah. It's a platform for projecting power.
Yeah.
Delivering those standoff strikes.
Right.
And waging electronic warfare.
So as we discussed, the stealth aspect, it's still crucial, even if it's not the invisibility cloak that some imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're not looking to fly deep into enemy territory, why even bother with stealth at all? Why not just, load up a regular jet with all those long-range missiles?
That's a really good question, and I think it gets to the heart of how militaries think about these technologies.
Okay.
Stealth doesn't just mean avoiding detection altogether. It's also about delaying detection.
Okay.
Buying yourself those crucial extra minutes to get in, launch your attack, and get back out.
So even a little bit of stealth can make a big difference on the battlefield.
Absolutely, yeah. Those few extra minutes might be all you need to avoid enemy fire.
Oh, wow.
Or to slip past their air defenses.
So how would you rate the Su-57's stealth capabilities? Like, how does it compare to something like the American F-35?
It's really tough to say definitively.
Yeah.
There's a lot of secrecy surrounding these technologies.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of speculation. Some analysts argue the Su-57 prioritizes speed and maneuverability over just pure stealth.
Right.
While the F-35 is designed to be harder to detect on radar, but maybe a bit less agile in the air.
So it's a trade-off.
It is.
Different design philosophies for different goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think what's becoming clear is that this isn't just a technological competition.
Right.
It's about the tactics, the strategy, how these weapons are actually used in a real-world conflict.
Exactly, yeah. And the Ukraine conflict is giving us a glimpse into how these systems might be used in the future.
Yeah.
We're seeing this shift toward those standoff attacks, a heavier reliance on electronic warfare.
Speaking of which, that Kinzhal missile keeps coming up. Russia seems really proud of this thing.
They do.
But I remember you saying that the term hypersonic can be a little misleading.
Yeah, it can be.
It gets thrown around like it's some, magic bullet.
Right.
But it's more nuanced than that.
It is, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's incredibly fast.
Yes.
But how effective is it against sophisticated missile defense systems?
Right.
So it's not just about the speed.
No.
It's about the ability to evade those defenses.
Yeah, to dodge and weave.
To actually hit the target.
That's right.
And that's where systems like TIED come in, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That terminal high-altitude area defense system designed to intercept those fast maneuvering missiles.
That's right.
Kind of like a shield against those high-tech arrows, right?
That's such a really good analogy.
Trying to knock them out of the sky before they can do any damage.
Yeah. But just like any shield, it's not impenetrable.
Right.
And this is what makes this arms race so concerning.
Yeah.
As these weapons get faster, stealthier, more sophisticated, the defenses have to keep pace.
Right.
It becomes a very costly and complex game of, technological one-upmanship. So what does all of this mean for the future of warfare? Are we heading towards a world where conflicts are fought with these superweapons, with very little regard for traditional tactics, or even, the human cost?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very sobering thought.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights the importance of diplomacy.
Yes.
Of international cooperation.
Yeah.
And finding ways to prevent these conflicts from escalating in the first place.
It's a good reminder that even with all this amazing technology, we're still grappling with very human challenges.
Absolutely. And as we've seen in Ukraine, the human cost of war.
Yeah.
That's always the most devastating consequence.
Yeah, regardless of the weapons involved.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the specifics of the Su-57 and those hypersonic missiles to the broader implications for the future of warfare.
Right.
I think it's clear that this is just the beginning of a much larger conversation. And as always, we encourage you, our listeners, to keep digging deeper, challenge those assumptions, and form your own informed opinions about these very complex issues.
Yeah, it's important.
Because ultimately, I think the most powerful tool we have in navigating this kind of uncertain future is knowledge.
I agree. I think that's a great way to put it.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring.